What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. Today is a very good day. I have been saving this video for the longest time, and finally I had the opportunity with the release of Annihilation this weekend to do my top 10 sci-fi movies of the decade. So we're talking 2010 to 2000 and now. Now, this is not Austin counting down the best of the best, the most well-made, the ones that should have been considered for Academy Awards. And although I do love those movies, this is based on which ones do I love the most. This is my personal favorite top 10 sci-fi movies of the last 8 years now. So of course I look at how well they're made and how great the score is, how they bring you into the story, but it also goes on rewatchability. Which ones do I prefer to watch when they're on television, and which ones would I just kind of pass on? And I'll tell you right now, this top 10 list is one of the hardest lists I have ever had to make. I've really been enjoying doing these countdown series lately, so if you guys like this video, first of all, leave me a like, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel, do that. But second of all, leave some comments down below. What would you like me to tackle next? I've already done an MCU countdown. Right now I'm doing sci-fi movies. Give me your ideas of another countdown I could do, another list I could make. I love doing things like this. I mean, if you don't like it, I won't do another one, but if you do, leave me some comments below. Let me know what you guys would like to see. And if I get enough likes on this video, maybe I'll start doing one every weekend. I'm bored. I have no life. So today we're talking best sci-fi movies of the decade. Let's dig into this list a little bit. I am not including any Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, any DCEU entries, or anything Star Wars. I figured those would all kind of take up the entire list. We're moving away from those, going for more original, based on a novel type of deal. And even when you exclude superheroes and Star Wars, you still have so many movies to choose from. So of course, we've got honorable mentions. And kids, they are honorable. So my honorable mentions include a movie that I just recently watched. I need to watch it a few more times, so obviously I'm not putting it on my top 10, but Annihilation, Star Trek Into Darkness, Dread, The Hunger Games Catching Fire, that's sci-fi, Gravity, Pacific Rim, Snowpiercer, Source Code, fooled you with the thumbnail there, didn't I? And these honorable mentions were in no specific order, but this one barely missed the list. The World's End. Yes, it's a sci-fi movie. Yes, it's hilarious. I love this film. But this is a top 10 list. Let's get into it, guys. My number 10. So when I look at sci-fi movies, I think, what was the most creative thing that I have watched in the last decade? And coming in at number 10 is a very interesting movie, one that I didn't really have anticipation for, but this thing was so original, so well directed, and so well acted that I had to give the 10 spot to Edge of Tomorrow, or as they like to call it sometimes, Live, Die, Repeat. Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt are absolutely excellent in this movie. It's such a creative story, and the way that they tell it is one of the most interesting things that I've watched in the last 8 years. You get to experience these events over and over, and as Tom Cruise learns how to go about this and move within this scenario, you follow him as an audience member, and you are so engaged the entire time. I love this film, and like I said, rewatchability. I have watched it 3 times, and I find that it is so rewatchable. Sure, there are a couple of tempo problems towards the end, but you get to that third act, and then the ending of the movie just ties it all in, and they're making a sequel to this. I can't wait to see what they do. We're gonna take you to the moon, Murph. We're gonna take you all the way to space and ride my rocket ship. It's just one of those movies, the first time I watched it, I'm like, alright, I get the hype train, but I'm just not locked into this film. Maybe I need to watch it a few more times before I understand it, but it's so complex, and the third act just really kind of falls short, but then you continue to watch it. The more I watch this movie, the higher it goes. Christopher Nolan just has that effect on me, and I know Interstellar is not a movie that everyone's on board with, and some of you guys watching this video might be like, Austin, what are you doing? But I love a movie that makes you think, and I love how Interstellar continues to change over time. Every single time I watch it, I get something new out of it, and sure, the third act falls into that cliched, oh, love is the thing that brings us together, but I would be lying if I said it wasn't cool. Christopher Nolan is different, and while I don't think this is the best movie he's ever directed, in terms of sci-fi, the creative aspect of Interstellar very much intrigues me every single time I watch it. I feel like I like it more than most, but it's a movie that I think belongs in my top 10 list. Now, the reason that I'm doing this list is because Alex Garland had a brand new movie coming out this weekend called Annihilation. Ex Machina is his first film, and Ex Machina deserves its place in this top 10. This movie is so cool, and it is so in-depth, intense. It brings a new element to sci-fi. The performances are top-notch. Alicia Vikander, where in the world did she come from? She's a major movie star now, but I believe it all started with her performance in this film. She does such a wonderful job of engaging you, making you think that she's on a certain side, and then you get to that third act, it switches things up, turns things on its head. Once again, it's one of those that took me a couple of watches to get really on board with it, but the more I watch it, the more I enjoy it, and that is why it's number 8 on this list. And number 7 is Looper. Looper is such a creative film from the mind of Rian Johnson, the guy who brought us Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now, not everyone is on board with Star Wars The Last Jedi, but I believe Looper is one of the coolest, most intense sci-fi time travel films that I've watched in a long time. You have some of my favorite actors in there, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Paul Dano, Bruce Willis, all giving top-notch performances, but then you have this plot with this young boy, and most of the time you have child actors in there, and I'm like, all right, I could do without them, but this kid is phenomenal in this role, and he is so believable. Looper is gritty, Looper is dark, but Looper deserves its spot on my top 10 list. Don't get mad at me, this is where it comes controversial. I have watched this movie 4 to 5 times, and every time I watch it, I find something more and more phenomenal in it, and honestly, it's moved its way up this list, and I actually give this movie right here a better score than the movie that is one spot ahead of it, but like I said, I go by rewatchability, and while I don't rewatch this as much as the one in front of it, I think Mad Max Fury Road is one of the coolest, most intense action movies of the, well, I can't say decade, I could say ever. Of the ever. Yes, it's an action movie, but it is very much a sci-fi film, and I enjoyed the other Mad Maxes for what they were, but this one just took it to a whole new level. You have Tom Hardy giving a fantastic performance by not saying much, but I think the person that steals this movie is Charlize Theron. She is phenomenal. Brilliant directing by George Miller and just top-notch stunt performances. Can we talk about the stunt performers real quick? I feel like they always go overlooked, but the action in this movie is made because of them and because of how good the CGI blends with the practical effects. I love Mad Max Fury Road, and I feel like eventually it's going to move its way into my top 5, but until then. Now, I know this one's a little bit longer, and some people may not enjoy it because it's not as up-tempo and high-stakes action as Mad Max, but I think The Martian is one of the most interesting sci-fi movies we've gotten in a while, and it's one that I feel like people forget about maybe more than they should. I love Matt Damon in this role, and every single time I watch it, it's coming on television now, and when I just see him sit there and figure everything out when he's in the situation, kind of like what Tom Hanks did, but I feel like Matt Damon just does it a little bit better in The Martian, and then you have that epic ending. And a lot of times you go for a twist ending in a movie or something that ends really dark, and it goes over well with the audience, but this one, you've got a happy ending, you're cheering at the end, you are rooting for this guy, and I love that fact. I think The Martian is so entertaining. It's a little long in parts, but I just think it all works so well by the end, and I love The Martian. Apes. Now, I only wanted to put one Apes movie on this list just so it wouldn't be taken up. Now, I really enjoy Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I think it's a great start. War for the Planet of the Apes is a phenomenal ending. It's not what you expect when you see the trailers and you see that title, War, but I still think it was really good. But my entry on this list is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I think this is the Dark Knight to the Batman trilogy. Matt Reeves comes in and interjects just so much tension and drama and humanity to these characters and brings you a story that I wasn't expecting when I watch it. You have great action, great performances. You bring in Jason Clarke and Gary Oldman, and they just give it their all. This movie is fantastic, and Andy Serkis owns the role of Caesar. Arrival has steadily moved up my list. My goodness, the first time I watched this, I didn't know what to think. I was a little blown away and confused and mind blown at the same time. But Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorite directors. He's my second favorite director working right now, and everything he does is gold. Now, tackling the sci-fi genre is a tough task, but I believe he does it so well with Arrival. This is a beautiful story with beautiful acting. I think Amy Adams should have and could have been nominated for an Oscar. It's not a war movie, it's not an action movie, it's a movie about language and learning to pass these barriers when it comes to relationships, not just between aliens and humans, but between countries, and I think that's so interesting tackling that in a sci-fi film. This is full-on sci-fi. One of the best scores that I have ever heard. We just lost the composer to this movie, and it is so sad. I mourn so much because this guy brought us one of the best sci-fi scores, I believe, of the decade, maybe of all time. Denis Villeneuve, he continues to blow my mind, and what he did with Arrival, I believe, was just the setup to what he did with Blade Runner 2049. Now, both of these movies are so close for me. I love both of them so much, but I look at Blade Runner 2049, and what he did, bringing that old story to a new generation, changing it up just a bit, and giving us a brand new cult classic, because this movie, frankly, didn't do very well at the box office, just like its predecessor. And while it was received very well by audiences and critics alike, it's not getting too much attention when it comes to acting, performing, and even Best Picture-like awards at the Oscars. And I know that doesn't really determine anything, and it doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, but Blade Runner 2049 deserves so many accolades in my opinion. I love this movie. The first time I watched it, I was floored from beginning to end. You get sucked in by that Hans Zimmer score, and then by the end, you are shedding tears with Ryan Gosling's character, and then you see Harrison Ford on screen, and how they handled him and his character. It's one of the best performances he's given in a long, long time. Decades, especially this decade, and this is number 2 on my list. Oh my goodness, I have talked so much. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I appreciate your support. I love doing top 10, top 5, top 18 lists, and I'm so glad I finally get the opportunity to talk about this movie on my channel. I said Denis Villeneuve was my second favorite director working right now. Christopher Nolan is my first, and I believe his masterpiece of a film, not including The Dark Knight, is Inception. This movie is mind-boggling, and every single time I watch it, I get something new out of it. I feel like I've said that a lot on this list, so I'll dig a little bit deeper. The concepts and the ideas here are things that went way over my head the first time that I watched it. The fact that you have all of these different dream levels, you go into these dreams, you are connecting one thing to another all throughout the movie, how these characters are interacting, what they say, that builds up and then ties together by the end. There are so many layers, I say layers, both figuratively and literally in this movie, but I believe Inception is one of the most layered and beautiful and most think piece films I have seen of the decade. And the fact that it is a sci-fi movie just kind of adds on to the things that I love about it. Inception is such a cool movie with such a great cast. Leo does a phenomenal job, but it also has talent after talent after talent. Ellen Page kills it in this movie. And what makes a good sci-fi film, you say, well, you have to have the acting, you have to have the story, but then the score, and the Inception score is so good. You know it when you hear it. It is in so, it's ripped off in so many YouTube videos. What am I saying? I ripped off my intro song, so. But my number 1 sci-fi movie of the decade is Inception. If you guys liked this list, like I said, let me know. Maybe I'll do other decades, 2000 through 2010, the 90s, the 80s. Maybe I'll do different genres. I love comedies, I love action. I've already done Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, but maybe I can just do superhero movies in general. I have 86 films on my IMDb superhero list, so be sure to comment which one you want to see next. Now, next weekend, I'm probably going to do my Oscar nominations video, so I may not do a list, but if you guys really want to see one, hey, you never know. Thank you guys so much for liking this video, being a part of all of my reviews and reactions. You are the absolute best, and I will catch you later.